Greetings, I'm the Bulgarian Troglodyte. Today I'm gonna talk about all the Japanese films and TV shows that I have watched on Netflix recently. So I have had Netflix since early October. The only reason I subscribed to Netflix this time is that the new Heartstopper season was out and I absolutely loved that new season and watched it already a couple of times. Yeah, I just love that show. But anyway, that's not the topic of today. But then I also started looking at all the Japanese stuff that they have on Netflix, and they actually have a pretty good selection of, especially I think, Japanese TV dramas. And I've really gotten hooked on those TV dramas recently because they are just perfect kind of for my taste. They are perfect comfort food, and they really help me now that I'm in a kind of lifestyle change and trying to lose weight and stuff. So it's good to have something that kind of comforts you and makes you have fun and stuff. So but I've watched also some films in Netflix, Japanese films, only Japanese stuff, and those have been really good as well. But again, let's go through them. I'm not gonna talk about each one that much because this would be too long, but I maybe focus a bit more on the ones that I really loved. I started with this one. It's called Drawing Closer. So this is a like a 2 hour movie. It has that kind of very classic plot where there's this young girl who's gonna die soon. She knows that she's gonna die in 6 months. And then this guy who is the same age starts to visit her and they become really good friends. And then the guy actually finds out that he's gonna die as well. So that's kind of the more unique thing about the story that they're actually gonna both die. Although I think that has been done. Isn't there that Jack Nicholson, Morgan Freeman film that basically does something like that, I think. I haven't seen that film in its totality. But yeah, very kind of cliche and classic plot, but I think it's still a decent, heartwarming film about love and human connection with decent performances and kind of average, really naturalistic cinematography. Yeah, I did enjoy this one and I like these types of emotional dramas a lot and I could watch these types of films like all day long. But yeah, if you like this type of film, I would recommend it. But if you don't, you are not gonna miss that much because it's not like a great movie or anything. But definitely for fans of these types of dramas. And it's a very recent one as it is from this year. Yeah. Then the next film is actually a bit better. It's sorry about that. Yeah. It's called Me Chihiro. And this I've wanted to watch for a while. It came out last year. It's by Rikia Imaizumi. So this is also like a typical slice of life drama, but it's very well done. So we have this former sex worker. She works in this bento stand. Again, bentos are those Japanese lunch boxes where you have like different types of food in it. And then we see her like daily life and how she interacts with her customers and how she helps people. She's like a really quirky but a very nice person with a very unique personality. I really like her character, and there are many like heartwarming moments here. There is lots of pretty nice humor here and a nice variety of different types of characters. So if you like again Koreeda films or Hamaguchi films or these types of slice of life Japanese dramas, you would probably really enjoy this one. Again, it's not as good as Koreeda's best work or Hamaguchi's best work, but it's still a very good slice of life film that I definitely want to watch again. Yeah, really good movie. Yeah. But I think with these Netflix slice of life and drama films, you can see that they don't have the kind of visual prowess that the films from the great directors have. That's one of the main points that these films lack, that they just don't have that kind of X factor that a great director brings. Yeah. And then I've watched four of the Rurouni Kenshin films, so I'll just talk about all of them here. So I haven't watched the final one yet, but I'm going to. The final one is the prequel one, so I've kind of seen the other stuff, but the prequel. So these ones, even though I've rated this first one 3 stars and the other three, 3.5, I really enjoyed them. Like, but the rating comes more from the fact that I don't think these are great films, and I think they are very cliche, but at the same time they are very enjoyable. And so these are about this assassin Kenshin Himura or Pattosai, but he stops killing people and then he starts this kind of redemption arc. He still fights and he's like pretty much the best samurai in Japan or one of the best, and but he just stops killing people and then he meets these other characters, becomes friends with them, and there are also these adventures and war in this. But out of the four that I watched, I think this first one is the weakest one. I think the sequels improve the action and they also have more interesting storylines. I especially like the second and third one, which have that again other assassin who almost burned to death, but then he didn't die, and then they have to fight him. Like those that storyline, I really enjoyed. And my main gripe with these films is that they are just so cliche in the story that, oh yeah, there's this great fighter. He used to be an assassin, a killer, but then he stops killing people. Like that's been done like million times. And then in one of the films, like he has to go back to his ex-master to learn a final technique. Like how many times has that been done? So many times. But if you look back past the cliches, these are just so thrilling and fun, and there's so much great high adrenaline action in them and decent characters. And of course, these are based on a very famous manga series, again named Rurouni Kenshin. Although there's lots of this kind of controversy with that manga series now because I think the manga author got caught of having child pornography at his home or something like that. So yeah, he can tarnish his legacy with being a piece of shit. But that manga series, I haven't read the manga, but it's one of the best-selling mangas of all time and big classic. And there's also an anime adaptation or even couple, and those are also very highly acclaimed. But I haven't seen the anime. And if I'm ever gonna get to the manga, I will definitely buy used copies because I don't wanna support a pedophile, of course. But we'll see if I ever read the manga. But these films were um, fun, okay, with great action sequences, even some more emotional moments, very interesting soundtrack that's pretty kind of over the top, but kind of fits the stories well. And I think you could even binge all the films like in one day because they are just so fast paced and entertaining. They never feel slow. But to me, this first one was a bit worse than the other ones. But yeah, they are good stuff overall, even though very cliche. Well, then we get to one of my favorites of the month. So this is a mini series. I think it was 10 episodes, and the episodes are like I think between 45 minutes and hour long. So this is called First Love, and it got inspiration from the famous Japanese pop star Hikaru Utada. And there are a couple of her songs in this that I really love. There's one called Hatsukoi that I've been listening to a lot, and I also listened to a couple of her albums. I had been familiar with her before I got into this series as well, but then watching this series pushed me to get into her music finally, and I'm still have to listen to a lot more albums. I only listened to the first couple, and then the Hatsukoi song is a later song, but I haven't listened to that full album. And this also has Takeru Sato, who played Pattosai in the Rurouni Kenshin films, although in a very different role here. But this is a very interesting show. So we follow these two people, man and a woman, when they are in their, I think, late 30s. But then we have these flashbacks back when they met in their teenage years. They were in love, and yeah, that's why it's called first love, because that was their first love. So we constantly jump back from current day to back to the past, to their again teenage years and then their early college years. And this man is still in love with her, and he still misses her. There's like a piece of him missing because he isn't in contact with her anymore, because they relationship fell apart back in their early 20s, because the woman got into an accident and lost her memory actually. So she doesn't remember this guy, but the guy remembers the woman. But then they kind of start getting acquainted again. Again, the guy remembers the woman, but the woman doesn't remember the guy. So it's a interesting dynamic there. And then there are other characters that come to play. Again, the woman had a child with another man, and that child is now a teenager and he's really into music. So we follow him a lot and his kind of love story as well. But this is a really beautiful film about true love. It's very sentimental, but it does that sentimentality in a good way, not in a that kind of American way when it becomes laughable, but this does it in a way that it really makes you emotional and it makes you think about life and love, and yeah, it makes you laugh sick as well when you see that kind of true love on screen. Yeah, really great performances here. It's also really well shot. Yeah, it has a fairly cinematic feel at times, even though it's a mini series. So you can clearly see that the people who worked at this were really talented people, and I got so hooked into this. I had to watch it very quickly. And then I was so sad when it ended, although I really loved the ending. And then that's when we hear the Hatsukoi song from Hikaru Utada. And God, it's just so beautiful, so beautiful. Yeah, both the song and that sequence. Yeah, and this also shows how, again, the expectations you have as a teenager don't always come true. That you have those big dreams and stuff, but then when you are in your 30s and stuff, you see that oh, life isn't that easy, and your life goes to a completely different direction that you thought it would go. So this is something that I think if you are a bit older, you can probably relate to a lot that is happening here. It really makes you think about your own life as well. There's great chemistry between these characters as well, and yeah, I absolutely love this one. So if you have Netflix, I would highly recommend this. This is a very adult type of drama, but it also has that kind of syrupy, sentimental love stuff if you really are into that, like I am. So yeah, these Japanese drama series are just so good. Like the many of the ones that I have watched, I always wish that why does this have to be only 10 episodes long? I could watch this like every day, 24/7 for weeks. Yeah. Then another drama series, but this is a bit more comedic, so it's the full-time wife escapist. And I think the other English name is for this is Married as a Job. So it's about this 25-year-old woman called Mikuri Moriyama. She has had trouble keeping jobs, so she doesn't really know what she should do when she gets fired from her job. But then she starts to clean this guy's house whose name is Hiramasa Chusaki, and he is like 10 years older than her. And then when she's cleaning his like work, not workplace but home, yeah, I think I said that she's cleaning his job or something, but yeah, she's cleaning his home. But she gets this crazy idea that what if we got married like as a cover, that then she would get a home and a wage by cleaning his apartment and cooking him food and stuff. But then as they start doing that fake marriage, then they actually start falling in love with each other, and it's very awkward because this guy, even though he's in his mid 30s, he's never had like proper relationships with women, so he's very awkward and he doesn't really know how to act with women and stuff like that. So it's a very awkward relationship in that way. It was very heartwarming as well. And I think this is something that really explores lots of the social norms in Japan, like the institution of marriage, how it's often not about love, but it's more about security and stability and those types of boring things, and not about like a burning desire to be with your partner and stuff like that. So I think Japanese people probably get even more out of this show than us Westerners. And lots of the humor, it's kind of more low key humor, and lots of the situations aren't very over the top, but they are still lots of fun. And they also kind of explore what these characters really think inside, and we can see like how like she reacts to these situations and how he reacts to these situations kind of individually. So it's very fun and interesting in that way. And there are also lots of other interesting characters, and there's even some gay representation in the workplace. So that's like makes this show a bit more progressive as well. Yeah, and it definitely has a bit of a feminist vibe at some points, which I also really enjoyed. But I really like this mini series, and I also watched there's a sequel movie that came out 5 years later, which was quite good, and that kind of explores when they are again together and what happens to them then. And in that, they also explore like the COVID pandemic, because again, this was probably filmed around the time that it happened, so lots of it explores that. Yeah. But then these next few films I didn't watch on Netflix, so I'm not gonna talk about those. Then we have the other, sorry, Rurouni Kenshin films, but I already talked about them a bit. Well, I watched Porco Rosso, the Studio Ghibli film on Netflix as well, because they have, again, pretty much all the major Miyazaki films. They even have The Boy and the Heron, which I still need to watch. But yeah, this was a solid Studio Ghibli film. Not one of my favorites. It has a very kind of interesting low-key story about this big in 1930s Italy. He's a uh, like what's that word? He's a pilot. Yeah, but yeah, it has that classic Studio Ghibli animation that you can see here. It looks really good as you would expect, and the voice acting is really good. I of course watch it in the original Japanese. I don't watch this dubbed. Yeah, I don't have that much to say about it. It didn't touch me as much as My Neighbor Totoro or Kiki's Delivery Service or Princess Mononoke, for example. But it's still a solid one. But it's definitely one of the more low key ones, and it doesn't feel as kind of as deep as some of the best ones. Yeah. Then I watched Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, which is the prequel to the very popular anime show and very popular manga. So I really enjoyed the show. I watched it back in January, I think, and yeah, I had lots of fun with the show. Obviously, it's still gonna continue, and I probably will get into the manga at some point as well. And I think the manga just ended recently. But yeah, this was lots of fun with great animation. So this story is basically about these kind of again people who fight these things called curses. And the curses are kind of like demons, basically you could say, and monsters. And we have many of the same characters as we have in the show, but not all of the same ones. And this just gives some like background information how many of these things started. And this is kind of just before the show. It's not that much before it. Yeah, and it's full of fight scenes. They are very exciting and again well animated. And yeah, it's not the deepest show or deepest movie, but the fights are just fun, and it's just classic shonen type of anime. Yeah. Then Orange Days, this might be my favorite that I watched on Netflix. I absolutely love this one and made me a bit teary-eyed, of course. So, but this is another Japanese miniseries, drama miniseries, and this is following these college kids who are like they're trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. They're kind of at the last year at college and trying to find work and things like that. But this is, of course, mainly a love story between this psychology student and then this deaf girl. And the deaf girl used to be a classical violinist and a pianist, but then she sadly lost her hearing, and that was really brutal for her because she was like really talented and a virtuosic person, and she was going places with her playing. But then this psychology student falls in love with her, and they become friends, and then we see their relationship developing, and both of them trying to find their way, both in terms of again their romantic life, but also um, in terms of like what they want to do with their life, because she's now deaf, but the only thing that she loves is music. So it's really hard for her to try to figure out what she wants to do. Then she also has to figure out whether she wants to get surgery for her ears because there's a possibility that it might help her. But then we also have their friends that play a key role here, and we follow their life as well. There are these two guys, and they are also studying in the university. One of them is a photographer, and yeah, one of them is thinking about going back to his family business and stuff. So all of the characters have very distinctive personalities. Yeah, and we also see the deaf girl's family a lot in it. Her mother and then her friend. But this was just so beautiful and funny and heartfelt. Again, the characters are so great. I loved all of them and I loved their interaction. Lots of their problems are very relatable for me as I'm also in my 20s and still everything is very unclear, like what how my life will turn out and stuff. So I'm kind of in a perfect place in my life to watch a show like this because I can relate to it a lot. And this just has everything that I love. That again, it has the love story, it has the drama, it has that element of are they gonna get together or aren't they gonna get together? What's gonna happen to them? And yeah, and this is actually a bit older one because it's from 2004. Because many of the Japanese TV dramas in Netflix are from the past decade, and there aren't that many that are a bit older. So it was cool to see something that was a bit older as well. Yeah. Oh, I just absolutely love this one. It had a nice soundtrack as well and pretty decent visuals, pretty typical visuals, but decent. And yeah, it's just so strong with great characters and plot that I loved and very relatable themes. A very emotional show. Yeah, this one I would highly recommend if you love romances and dramas and slice of life stuff and things like that. Yeah, so good. So good. And many of these dramas are a bit tamer than the ones in the US because obviously Japan is a bit more of a conservative culture. So, for example, the dating life is very, very different in these Japanese shows often. Yeah, they are way more awkward about sex, and sex isn't really mentioned as much. And even like kissing seems like such a big deal in these shows compared to many of the American ones and stuff. So they are a bit different in terms of the culture. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing, nor is it necessarily a good thing either. But it's just something that they are. Yeah. Then couple more Japanese drama series which I really enjoyed. So this one was really good. Turn to Me Mukai-kun. So this is about this 33-year-old guy who has that like typical middle class job wearing a suit, and he hasn't dated in 10 years, but he wants to get back to the dating game. So we see him trying to date many different women But there is always these situations when he dates where he doesn't really understand what the women are thinking, and he doesn't really understand all the complexities and nuances of dating and being with other people, so he always kind of gets screwed in the end. But it's really funny in that way, and it actually shows quite philosophically, in fact, like all the weird sides of dating and how it can be so difficult to kind of try to read somebody's mind and what they are thinking, like whether they are into you or they aren't into you, and what they want from your relationship, whether they just want to be friends or whether they want something more. And there are these constant discussions here about these things that go into the in depth about these things. So it's very interesting. Like Mukai, who is the main character, the guy who has struggled with dating, also befriends this woman in a restaurant, and the woman gives him constant advice. Then they kind of become closer and closer, and maybe they will develop something towards the end. And this actually has a open ending, so that you don't know like what will happen after the ending with the characters, because it kind of really leaves it open and for you to decide. So there would be even like possibility for a sequel, I guess. This has also pretty nice cinematography. There's lots of food in it, and I love again the Japanese obsession about food. Lots of it is again situated in these curry restaurants, or kare. They say kare, and food looks delicious. But this was really fun, but also quite thought provoking, which I didn't expect. Yeah, I really enjoyed watching this one, and will definitely watch it again. And then this next one I finished last night. So it's Grand Maison Tokyo. So this is about these Japanese chefs who again work in Paris, but then it goes sideways. But then they decide again, this guy here and the woman next to him, they decide to open a restaurant together, and they want to get 3 Michelin stars, because the guy who's a famous chef has only managed to get 2 Michelin stars, never three. So they'll try to make the best French food in the planet. So they only make again French food, which that was kind of my gripe with the series, that I would have rather seen them make Japanese food, because that's more appealing to me than the kind of French gourmet food that probably I would hate if I tasted it. But it was a lot of fun to see them cook and be obsessed about cooking and trying to make the dishes better and better. And then there's a bit of like personal drama there, and then some scheming uh, there as well, because the reason the Paris restaurant went sideways is that there was this incident where a diplomat got on like an allergy attack, because there was accidentally some peanuts in the food that he got, even though he was allergic to peanuts. So there's kind of the aftermath of that, even though we are situated like 3 years after that happened. Yeah. And it shows how tough the competition is in the upper echelons of the restaurant world, and it's really fun to follow and see all those different types of foods and stuff. And I even kind of had a dream about this last night when I just finished it before I went to bed. Like I saw some of those huge fish that they were cooking in my dream, and that was kind of a nightmare because I hate fish and seafood. But yeah, fun show. So if you like cooking dramas, you probably like this one a lot. Yeah. Yeah, but those were all the stuff that I watched on Netflix in the past month or so, and of course I've watched stuff elsewhere too, like again Twilight Samurai and Himizu. These Kaguru Ishii films I would highly recommend as well, and Tsukamoto's Whitehall was excellent. Watch that one on YouTube. Of these five I actually watched on YouTube: Vital Emotion, Mirrored Mind, Labyrinth of Dreams, and Himizu if you are interested. Touch of Fever I also watched on YouTube. yeah, Law of Life was a interesting film. But yeah, lots of things to talk about here. By the way, if you like anime, definitely watch Free Ren. That was one of my favorite watches of the year. But anyway, let me know if you have watched any of these or if you got interested in any of them. Yeah. But thanks for watching. Don't drink Coke at all. Sayonara and arigato gozaimashita.